Hello, and welcome to my review of the Barbie movie entitled She Says Vagina. And by the way, I will be filming this vertically because if I don't, then I will not be looking at the camera. Just because of the thing. The thing is that it's on the side. I'm filming this vertically. So, I saw Barbie 2 days ago. I saw it on opening night, and I loved it. As a result, this review will probably be shorter than my usual reviews because it's a lot easier for me to focus on things I don't like than it is for things I did. So, this will probably be shorter. I have my notes here, my water here, and please ignore this neon green shirt. It is neon, even though the video looks kind of washed out, but I wore this because it's comfortable and on the pretense that I was not going to be going out today. So, yeah. Let's talk about Barbie 2023. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. It was a comedy that actually managed to take itself seriously in dramatic moments, but in comedic moments didn't take itself very seriously. So, let's start with just a breakdown of the plot. This will have spoilers. So, we start with a pink Warner Brothers logo, and then a Mattel logo, which is very telling. Mattel was directly involved with this, and we see Mattel a lot throughout the film. Like, we see their office, we see the logo pop up all over the place. It's 2-hour-long product placement, basically, but it's done well. So, we start by seeing a parody of 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's basically saying the backstory behind Barbie and why it was created, which was that most dolls for kids were like baby dolls. And so it sort of forced girls to act like mothers. And then Barbie was created, which was an adult doll. And that allowed a kid to, like, pretend to be adults with, like, careers and lives and stuff. Which, that is true. That is why Barbie was originally created. And the narration ends with a very tongue-in-cheek comment about saying how sexism was solved forever because of Barbie. Also, by the way, Helen Mirren is amazing as the narrator. After that, we see Margot Barbie as she's stereotypical Barbie, like the Barbie that you think of when someone says Barbie, living in Barbie land with, like, Dua Lipa and stuff. And so then she starts acting on Barbie like she develops cellulite, and she goes to the human world to find things out after lesbian Barbie, Kate McKinnon, tells her to go to the human world to find out what's wrong with her. Turns out that her owner, a little girl, well, now the girl's in middle school, and the girl's mom started playing with Barbie to cope with her own loneliness, which led to Barbie acting like a real middle-aged woman with a more realistic body and being self-conscious and things like that. And eventually, and then Ken goes with her. Ken discovers the concept of patriarchy, takes that back to Barbie Land, transforms Barbie Land into Kendom, so Barbie goes from a matriarchy to a patriarchy. Barbie has a heart-to-heart with Ken, and tells him that the patriarchy is not actually all it's cracked up to be. I'm going to go more in detail about what happens later. And then Barbie realizes she's not happy being Barbie anymore now that she's seen the human world. She wants to be real. And so she turns into a real human, and then the movie ends with her seeing her gynecologist. So, okay, I skipped a lot of stuff. But first thing that I really liked about the film was the world building. And world building is something that just is missing a lot from these more recent, like, fantasy and sci-fi movies, where they focus more on the aesthetic than the actual lore. And I think this is especially a problem in the more recent Star Wars movies. And I know that Star Wars is sci-fi, whereas Barbie is fantasy, but still. That was not a Discord ping. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways. So. Where was I? Okay, right. World sorry. So, the world building and aesthetic is very emblematic of actual Barbie dolls. Like, no water coming out of the faucets. Barbie has a full plate of food, and she holds it to her mouth. She doesn't take a bite or anything. Then she holds it to her mouth, puts it down. She doesn't actually eat anything. All of the water in Barbie Land is plastic. She is a doll, basically. And we even see a scene later in the movie where she is drinking tea in the human world, and she has to, like, it's like, because she's never actually consumed anything before. So that was good. Also, something I found interesting is that the Barbie movie starts with Barbie Land being a matriarchy. Where Kens are literally treated like a lower class, like they don't have homes. Or it's heavily implied that they don't have homes. Like, one of the Barbies says, hey, where do the Kens go every night? And then Barbie says, I don't know. So it's heavily implied that the Kens are literally just homeless. Like, Ken's job is... Ryan Gosling's Ken. His job is beach. Just beach. That's his job. He's not... Like, he's not a lifeguard or surfer. His job is just existing at the beach. And so I was worried, okay, is this film going to say that patriarchy is bad, but matriarchy is good? Because that's not really true. We tend to think that because women have been an oppressed group for so long in the United States. But fundamentally speaking, at its basic level, a matriarchy is no better than a patriarchy because you still have an entire sex being oppressed. But I was wrong. Barbie didn't actually say that a matriarchy was inherently better than a patriarchy. It makes fun of the patriarchy more than it does a matriarchy, which, makes sense because we live in a patriarchy, and so we have to deal with the problems coming from that, not from a society led by women. So it makes sense that they would make fun of one more than the other. But by the end, it's reverted back to the matriarchy in Barbie Land, but then Kens are given an opportunity to build their way up. And it ends with a narration saying, one day, the Kens will have as many rights in Barbie Land as women do in the real world. Which, yeah. So, I do like how the film acknowledges that a society dominated by either sex is still subjugating the other sex and oppressing them. But it definitely places a lot more focus on feminism, which I like. Since Barbie has simultaneously been a symbol of feminism and a symbol of sexism. Because she is Barbie and she can do anything. That's her point. Like, she's been in space, she's been the president, she's done everything. But she also, many people find that she pushes unrealistic body standards for women, which is kind of true. And then there was also the Skipper doll who grew breasts. By the way, she's in the movie. Like, we actually see a doll grow breasts in the movie. It's not for kids. This is a PG-13 movie. But the way that Barbie tackled social issues, I found, was particularly effective, and none of it felt forced, despite what Ben Shapiro may say. I don't have a script for this, in case you can tell. I'm just ranting. And with the change to patriarchy... Actually, let me rewind. When they go to the real world, Barbie instantly feels uncomfortable, whereas Ken instantly feels more confident, because the real world is run by men. And this is even poked fun at in the Mattel scene when Barbie confronts the Mattel board of directors, where the CEO, played by Will Ferrell, who does great, by the way, says that Mattel is a company built on the backs of women, even though everyone in the board, including the CEO, is a man. And then he says at one point, some of my best friends are Jewish, which, okay, like, obviously this is making fun of the character and not a criticism of the screenwriters. Also, side note, at one point, when everyone has gone back to Barbie Land, the CEO says, "Sometimes I just want to tickle my coworkers." And in that moment, all I could think of was the scene in Elf where Buddy tries to initiate a tickle fight because he's also played by Will Ferrell. So there was that. And in the end, while trying to show acknowledging that Barbie is a symbol of toxic beauty standards while also being a symbol of feminism, the movie does that quite well. Having said that, you can also tell that the reason they're pushing the feminist narrative is not just because Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie were heavily involved with the movie. I mean, that's one of the reasons they actually leave the message. However, Mattel advocates for the message because it increases their image. So, the director and producer want to push a positive message. The corporation wants to push sales. And the movie is very obviously product placement. Like, as I said before, the Mattel logo shows up with the Warner Brothers logo at the beginning of the movie, like, as one of the companies that made the movie. The Mattel company is a very large presence in the movie because when Barbie first goes to the real world, she seeks out Mattel, and she recognizes Mattel, being like, "Oh my god, my creator." And Ruth Handler, the founder of Barbie and founder of Mattel, is a character in the movie, and is the one who basically says that Barbie needs to find out who she is and who she wants to be. They have that confrontation at the end of the movie. It's between Barbie and the ghost of Ruth Handler, and that's when Barbie chooses to become human and changes her name to Barbara Handler, which happens to be the name of Ruth Handler's daughter, who Barbie was named after. And arguably the funniest part of Mattel's involvement in the movie is when Issa Rae's President Barbie character says "motherfucker." It's bleeped out with the Mattel logo, which is the funniest thing because no one is expecting it. But in like Pixar movies where they cut it off before you hear the word, she says the word, it's just bleeped out. So and then there are these 5-year-olds, like, dressed in pink in the theater, who are turning up to their parents and being like, "What did the lady say?" And also, I know I'm all over the place, but, like, this is a good movie. I don't have a point-by-point list of things that I didn't like, so this is just unhinged me. The movie it earned its PG-13 rating, very much so. Because at one point, some construction workers start inappropriately hitting on Barbie and Ken. Well, let me rephrase. They start inappropriately hitting on Barbie. No one's hitting on Ken. He's just Ken. And Barbie actually says, "Okay, you can hit on me, but I hope that you know I don't have a vagina. Ken doesn't have a penis." There's nothing down there. And all I could think of in that moment was, oh my god, Barbie said vagina. She says vagina. And earlier in the movie, one of the Barbies says about a Ken, "I'd like to see what lump of flesh he's hiding under his pants," or something related to Ken anatomy. So, lots of adult humor, but it's adult humor that's well done. And again, the movie ends with Barbie going into a building, saying she has an appointment, and, like, we're led to believe that it's like a job interview now that she's a human. Also, she's wearing flats, which, it's great. It's a big plot point is her heels going down. But no, she says, like, the person at the desk asks name, and she says Handler, Barbara. And then she says, "Okay, Barbara, what are you here for?" And Barbie replies, "I'm here to see my gynecologist." Credits. So yeah, and, like, there are, like, 5 and 6-year-olds in the audience who have no idea what a gynecologist is. There are also, I'm sure, like, boys in their who are like 16 and 17 who don't know what a gynecologist is either, which is a little bit sad, but it's true. I know this because I have conversations with lots of boys in that age range, and no, they don't know what a gynecologist is. Thanks, American education system. Anyways, also, the musical number Just Ken, sung by Ryan Gosling. I wasn't really concerned about Ryan Gosling singing. That was never really something that worried me, given that he was in La La Land, which accidentally won Best Picture. But I was worried that it would be awkward in the movie, because when a non-musical movie tries to include a musical number, it is very rarely well done, and oftentimes it's awkward. Like, this is one of the better examples, I think, but still, in Ralph Breaks the Internet, with Vanellope singing A Place Called Slaughter Race, which is, in and of itself, a parody of La La Land. It's sort of awkwardly included because the movie's not a musical, so, yeah. However, the way that Just Ken, there's another musical number, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the Kens talking about how manly they are to the Barbies around a campfire and stuff. Anyways, both of those musical numbers, they're not given any build-up, they're just launched into shamelessly. And it starts high energy and ends high energy. It's beautiful. And it's not treated as an out-of-place musical number, it's treated as just another scene that's happening, which is why it works. So that's done well. All the performances are great. Like, Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, America Ferrera. Kate McKinnon is hilarious in this, by the way. Also, I called her lesbian Barbie. She's technically a weird Barbie, but she's played by Kate McKinnon, and I'm pretty sure she hits on Margot Robbie at least 3 times. So, I'm calling her lesbian Barbie. Anyways, all the performances are great. The casting that I have an issue with is Ryan Gosling. I think he was a little too old to play Ken, especially since, I don't know, not especially since anything. This was, and I'm not taking credit for this, a friend of mine actually suggested this, which was that Ross Lynch would have been a better choice, because he can sing and he can act in the whole bit. But even though Ryan Gosling, especially with his transformation into, when Barbie Land became a patriarchy, when he got, like, a facelift and stuff, he, like, there were bags under his eyes, and I'm like, oh my god, he looks ancient. But it did work. I mean, his performance was great. The casting was great. His chemistry, or rather lack thereof, with Margot Robbie was perfect. He just looked a little bit too old, and I think that was a combination of just his age, and also more so the makeup department did not do him any favors. And I don't know if that was intentional. It might have been, but I looked at Margot Robbie and thought, yeah, okay, she's believable as a Barbie doll. She has smile lines because she's a human and not actually a Barbie, which, breaks the illusion a little bit. Get out of here, bug. But words. I believe that she is, in fact, a Barbie. I did not get that for Ken. I looked at Ken and thought, okay, that's a human. He wasn't really believable as a doll. Versus everyone else who played a Ken, besides John Cena, but he's in it for, 3 seconds. Everyone else was believable as, a doll, but Ryan Gosling just wasn't. Also, one particularly standout performance that I liked was Michael Cera as Alan. Now, the movie was not afraid to place some emphasis on the LGBTQ community, because Barbie obviously has a lot of influence over that. I went with a group of people who I knew from things that I'd done involving the gay community. Anyways, Alan is queer-coded, very much so, and I'm going to assume that's intentional, because that was a big part of why Alan was discontinued originally, because it's he's Ken's buddy, and all of Ken's clothes fit him, and it's but, yeah, so Alan was sort of the neurotic gay type in the movie, and also he had a much bigger role than I expected. He was the only male individual in Barbie Land who did not give in to the patriarchy scheme. And and he actually helped overthrow it. So that was very well done. There was also the inclusion of Earring Magic Ken and Sugar Daddy Ken, who are living with Weird Barbie, and I did not expect that. And it's a cameo. Like, they're only in it for, like, 5 seconds, but still. Especially... No, not especially. Like, both of them. Because both of them are clearly... Like, there's Sugar Daddy Ken, who is... Sugar Daddy. And then there's Earring Magic Ken, who is based off of gay guys at raves. And sadly, they got rid of Earring Magic Ken's cock ring necklace. They replaced it with just a Barbie necklace, but I think that had to be intentional. It had to be. But still, it's very heavily implied that the two of them are gay and dating. At least that's what I got. Midge is not in the movie for too long, but she is there. She shows up, and she's pregnant. It's pregnant Midge, specifically, and narrator Helen Mirren actually makes a comment about how she was discontinued because a pregnant doll was just too weird. So the movie is very obviously progressive, and also does lampshade itself at one point with Margot Robbie's Barbie having a breakdown. She's like, "I'm ugly now," and then the narrator butts in and says, "Note to the filmmakers: Margot Robbie is not the Margot Robbie is not the actress you want to cast if you want to make this point." Because Margot Robbie is obviously conventionally attractive, so having her turn ugly because she's not wearing makeup doesn't work. But the film does acknowledge this and calls it out. What else? This was a good movie. It had a good soundtrack, too. The filmography was beautiful. And I don't usually cry at movies, which is probably why I didn't cry at this one. But there were a lot of people around me who definitely were crying near the end of the movie. And while I was watching that, I was just thinking, wow, I'm a heartless asshole because I'm not crying. But a lot of movies don't make me cry unless it's like... Spoiler alert, and In the Heights made me cry. But I think that's it. And that's because someone died. But Existential Crisis... I don't know. But a very good movie. What does it have on Rotten Tomatoes right now? As of July 23rd at 5:18 p.m. EST, it has a 90 on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think it definitely deserves that 90. There are times when it's kind of awkward, the pacing is, and the dialogue is a little bit forced. So I don't think, this is not a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes movie. But this is definitely above an 89 kind of movie. Like, this film gets an A. It is a beautiful movie, both literally and figuratively. If movie theaters were free, or if they were cheaper, I would definitely see this movie again, in theaters. And I plan to watch it at least 5 times when it comes out on either streaming or DVD or whatever. I'm going to rewatch this, because it was a very good movie. And I will admit, I did not see Oppenheimer. This Barbie did not see Oppenheimer. I actually have a deep-seated hatred for J. Robert Oppenheimer, so obviously with this review, it's going to be biased. But I think if you had to choose between Barbie and Oppenheimer, I would say Barbie, because this is a film that feels... It does not feel like it's full length. It goes by very quickly, because everything is happening very... just the pacing is very quick. It's engaging. There is not a single scene where you're like, when will this end? I'm a very impatient person. Every single film I've ever watched, there's always a point where I'm like, is it over yet? Not this one. This one was refreshing in that it felt quick. It did not feel short. I felt like I was glad that I spent the money to watch it in theaters. I definitely recommend Barbie. It's beautiful. It's an amazing film. Don't listen to Ben Shapiro. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This movie goes way beyond just being woke for the sake of appealing to a mass audience. This is a film with a meaningful message. And if you're AFAB, I think that it is marketed towards you, probably, just with the way that it deals with themes of sexism and misogyny and how the patriarchy functions in society. Just, it's a great movie. I think that's everything. So, yeah.